The rate you're growing is absurd. You're in this cohort of companies that are just growing at rates that we've never seen in the history of startups.
The company was on the verge of going under when we launched Bolt. And what ended up happening is in the first 2 months, we went from 0 to 20 million of ARR. And we've already crossed 30 million of ARR with the current rate we're on. Our forecast for the year is we want to get to 100 million of ARR.
This is just nonstop wild shit. How is this possible? What has allowed you to grow this much, this fast with such a small team?
Most importantly, it's been the people. It's rare to find startups where you have kind of the core group of 5, 6, 7 people that have been there for 5 years plus.
You basically were building a tech first and then looking for a problem to solve later, which is often what people tell you not to do.
I think that's the hard thing about being an entrepreneur. There are periods of time where you have to make judgment calls that are not going to be the consensus view. You got to have confidence in your convictions on how to best play the hand.
A lot of people see these stats and they sometimes don't see that there was also years and years of work before that.
It was kind of like, Bolt's this overnight success, 7 years in the making.
Today, my guest is Eric Simons. Eric is co-founder and CEO of StackBlitz, which makes a product called Bolt, which is currently neck and neck with Cursor for being the fastest growing product in history. They're currently the #1 most popular web AI code app with over 3 million registered users. 2 months after launching last October, they hit 20 million ARR. At the time of this recording, they're approaching 40 million ARR. The story of Bolt is wild. They actually started the company 7 years ago and were about to run out of money and shut down. But they realized the tech that they'd been building for the past 7 years, called WebContainer, was perfectly suited for building AI products in the browser, so they launched the product with a tweet, and as Eric describes it, it was an overnight success 7 years in the making. If you'd like to better understand the cutting edge of AI coding apps and where things are going with AI and product building, this episode is a must listen. If you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe and follow it in your favorite podcasting app or YouTube. Also, if you become a yearly subscriber of my newsletter, you now get a year free of Perplexity Pro, Notion, Linear, Granola, and Superhuman. Check it out at lennysnewsletter.com. With that, I bring you Eric Simons. This episode is brought to you by Expo. Expo is a next-generation A/B testing and feature management platform built by alums of Airbnb and Snowflake for modern growth teams. Companies like Twitch, Miro, ClickUp, and DraftKings rely on Expo to power their experiments. Experimentation is increasingly essential for driving growth and for understanding the performance of new features. And Expo helps you increase experimentation velocity while unlocking rigorous, deep analysis in a way that no other commercial tool does. When I was at Airbnb, one of the things that I loved most was our experimentation platform, where I could set up experiments easily, troubleshoot issues, and analyze performance all on my own. Expo does all that and more, with advanced statistical methods that can help you shave weeks off experiment time, an accessible UI for diving deeper into performance, and out-of-the-box reporting that helps you avoid annoying, prolonged analytic cycles. Expo also makes it easy for you to share experiment insights with your team, sparking new ideas for the A/B testing flywheel. Expo powers experimentation across every use case, including product, growth, machine learning, monetization, and email marketing. Check out Expo at getexpo.com/Lenny and 10x your experiment velocity. That's geteppo.com/Lenny. This episode is brought to you by the Fundrise Flagship Fund. Full disclosure, real estate investing is boring. Prediction markets are exciting, meme coins are a thrill ride, even the stock market can swing wildly on a headline. Hello, DeepSeek. But with real estate investing, there's no drama or adrenaline or excuses to refresh your portfolio every few minutes. Just bland and boring stuff like diversification and dividends. So you won't be surprised to learn that the Fundrise Flagship Real Estate Fund is a complete snooze fest. The fund holds $1.1 billion worth of institutional caliber real estate managed by a team of pros focused on steadily growing your net worth for decades to come. See? Boring. That's the point. You can start investing in minutes and with as little as $10 by visiting fundrise.com/Lenny. Carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the Fundrise Flagship Fund before investing. Find this information and more in the fund's prospectus at fundrise.com/flagship. This is a paid ad. Eric, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm stoked to be here.
For folks that are not super familiar with Bolt, what is Bolt?
It's really simple. You go there, there's a text box, and you tell it what you want to build, whether it's a web or a mobile app. And so it's, kind of one of these, text to app building tools that become pretty popular over the past few months here. And it's not just like building, like a static site or something like that, but you can actually build full stack, real software with databases and hosting and et cetera, just from prompting. And in a ridiculously short period of time. It's not like you're spending, hours and hours or days putting this together. You can get results in like a minute.
Let's just share some numbers about the scale of what you're building. The rate you're growing is absurd. You're kind of in this cohort of companies that are just growing at rates that we've never seen in the history of startups, and you guys are at the edge of that. Share some numbers about how things went when you launched and where they're at today.
Yeah. I mean, when we launched, the company was on the verge of going under when we launched Bolt. Like, our company StackBlitz, we've been around for 7 years building web-based, development environment stuff. And so when we launched this, we were like, this would be amazing if this added like 100K of ARR over the next couple of months, and what ended up happening is, in the first 2 months, we went from 0 to 20 million of ARR. And I think we're on like month 4 or 4.5 or something like that at this point. And we've already crossed 30 million of ARR, and we're on the verge of crossing 40. Like by the time this comes out, it appears that we're going to be at 40 million ARR. So it's just like the scale of the growth of the revenue has been nuts. I mean, and of course, like kind of that correlates with like insane user growth as well. Like we've added, 3 million registered users, just in the past few months here. And, monthly active users is, around 1 million, I think at this point per month. So it's just, I've never seen anything. I've been doing startups for like 15 years. I've never seen anything like this. Everyone I've talked to, our investors or, et cetera, there's not a lot of corollaries to kind of what's going on here, and it's kind of extraordinary because our company wasn't doing AI stuff 6 months ago. We had no AI products, and just out of nowhere, we, from almost death of the company to being, the number one by traffic, revenue, et cetera, AI code gen app that's web-based in the world. Like I think the only other like startup ahead of us is, for code gen just in general would be like Cursor on adoption revenue at this point. And so anyways, it's been a heck of a ride, and our team's like 15, 20 people, so it's just dealing with, we're going to be closing on like 100,000 customers, and our support team's like 3 people, we're trying to scale that as fast as we can. So anyways, it's just kind of mind boggling, just the scale of the demand and how we've had to, turn things around to match the demand as best as we can,
Mind-boggling is an excellent way to describe what you just shared. 1 million monthly active users. You're at 40 million annual recurring revenue 5 months into the business. Is that right?
Yeah, we're with single digit weeks, right? Is like that's the current track rate that we're seeing for the thing. Yeah,
I think, are you guys the fastest growing startup in history?
I think it depends on probably where you peg the number, right? Because we're here to just like build great products, right? And just push the limits of like what's possible with the technology. And I think that we do our jobs well. It's kind of crazy things can happen, but I mean the current track rate we have, we're going to be exceeding kind of the forecast for Q1 with the current rate we're on. And, our forecast for the year is we want to get to 100 million of ARR. And now I think there's been a couple, that would either be on par with Cursor or ahead of them or something like that. But I mean, and I think there's going to be more things like this too. I don't think that it's just there's something really, I think a lot of people are in disbelief about it too. We're like, this is okay. Right. And this is from when we got to 4 million of ARR, 5 million of ARR in the first month. I would talk with people and they're like, okay, yeah, but like that could go to 0, right? And then it went to 20 the next month. I could go to 0, but now we're closing around 40, and so so from my view, I was also very skeptical, as this, like I've never seen anything grow like this, right? And so part of me, I was kind of for like a month, I was kind of waking up waiting for the day where it just was like, okay, so right? You know what I mean? Like it's this crazy thing happened and now it's not, but that's just, that data just hasn't come. And you see this happening with Cursor. You see this happening with a lot of these other AI startups, and the value proposition is real. Like the free market is filled with rational actors. People are coming to these tools because it is solving problems. They're able to do way more for way less cost than it would otherwise. And that's why I said I think we're going to see more of this, whether it's in coding or kind of other verticals or whatever. In a sense, it's almost like maybe the new normal, right? For as AI just continues to get better. But anyways,
let's get to a demo of Bolt so people can actually see what this looks like in action. And as you go through it, if you could even point out stuff that is different from other products in the space, say Lovable, V0, Replit, that other folks have heard about, that'd be useful.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. So this is Bolt. If you just go to bolt.new, things that I think are really interesting about Bolt. One is it's just like dead simple, whether you're logged in or logged out, like it's the same UI. It's extremely simple. It's just a text box. And I think that the biggest difference between Bolt and the other stuff out there, it's actually subtle. It's not like something you necessarily see in the UI, but it's how fast it is and how reliable it is. And this is because of how we are actually doing the compute. Because what's going on here is like when you type into whether it's Bolt or another product, it has to spin up a dev environment to actually make that application. So there needs to be some operating system somewhere that's running it. Everyone else runs those things on cloud servers, which those can take minutes to boot up, and they often will run into issues. And then you can end up literally stuck, right? And have to contact support to get it done, and get it unstuck or whatever, right? With Bolt, for the past 7 years, what our company's been doing has been building an operating system that runs inside of your browser locally using your CPU. So we have a very permissive free tier, and it's insanely fast and it's insanely reliable, right? So if I want to just as a quick example of this, say make a clone, of Spotify, right? And just hit enter. This thing's already getting to work. And already on the right here, this is a full dev environment. This is an actual operating system running inside of my browser. And I can, run commands on it, et cetera. And really, this is what you're seeing down here, this terminal and kind of what's backing it. This is what took us really 5, 6, 7 years to build and make so reliable. There would not be a Bolt without this technology called WebContainer that allows us to run an operating system in the browser. Because what's going on here is our AI agent for Bolt has bi-directional communication with this operating system. It's writing code. It's running the dev server for this thing. It's going to go ahead and spin this up. You can see how fast this is in a matter of 60 seconds. I said, make me a Spotify clone. And now we have one, right? And it looks pretty darn good.
That looks really good.
And so that's one of the, the other aspects around Bolt is this technology we made for the operating system side. The guys that have been working with us, for the past 5+ years on it, before this, they were actually doing machine learning AI stuff. And so when it came time to write the agent for Bolt, we had just an incredible amount of in-house expertise on how to actually merge these two different technology sets to have this really reliable experience that produces really beautiful, really functional stuff. So that's kind of based on what's really cool about the Bolt experience. The other thing is, a lot of these products, it's you can make something, but often you want to actually have a URL where you can share this, have it maybe even attach a domain to it or whatever have you. So with Bolt, we actually have built-in integrations with production grade hosting providers like Netlify, and for databases with Supabase. So if I go and just click the deploy button here, this is actually going to run a production build of this project we made here, right? And again, this is doing this entirely inside of my browser, so it doesn't cost us anything to do this. So again, you can do this for free, right? And it has gone ahead and deployed this on a real URL on Netlify. This is live. I can share this with anyone. And if I want to have buy the domain spotifyclone.com and point it at this, I can click this link here. Then I kick me into Netlify. I can attach this to my account, buy domain, point at that thing. And then from there on out, whenever I'm prompting Bolt to make changes to this application and hit deploy, that goes live on my public website then, right? So it's just, this is the simplest way to build a web app that's ever existed, that was kind of one of the key realizations I had a couple of weeks into the thing. I was seeing people use this for personal use cases, like medical donation sites or weddings or whatever. And I was like, don't these people know that like Wix or Squarespace exists? Should I tell them, And then it hit me. Those things are so complicated to use. Like I don't know if you've ever seen just the UI of these things, but like they're crazy complicated. And that's just for building like kind of like a static website. There's no way you could actually build like a functional app. And that's like with Bolt, if we were to sit here for another 30 minutes, we would have streaming. You'd be able to make playlists of different MP3 files or whatever. Like you can just keep prompting this thing to keep adding functionality, So it's that kind of I think some of the cool core experience of Bolt here. I can show you something cool that we just launched if that would be of interest. So this is like web apps, right? So like web apps are amazing, but often you want to have like a native app, And it's hard to build web apps. It's even harder to build native apps that you can then go put in the app store, right? And so we partnered up with a company called Expo, and their entire business is making basically like React Native tooling and this ecosystem that makes it super easy to build beautiful apps and actually get them in the app store. And so right here, I'll zoom in a little bit. We have this little build a mobile app with Expo. So if you click that, we kind of instruct you on how to just prompt mobile apps into existence. So let's make another Spotify clone that's an actual native mobile app. We'll say make a Spotify clone. Go ahead and hit enter. And what this thing's going to do is actually, again, spin up a operating system here where it's going to boot up the Expo tool chain and actually go and make a mobile app for us. And what's cool about this is we could actually preview it just in the browser here. But once this thing's done and it boots up, it's going to show a QR code. We're going to be able to scan it and in real time actually basically have like a test flight of this native application that we can try out on our phones. And as we keep prompting, you'll see it making changes and stuff, right? This is like kind of the first time, right, that, you don't have to be technical to make production grade web, full stack web and mobile apps. At this point, I've done nothing that requires developer knowledge to do any of this stuff, and that's kind of, I think that's what a lot of people are really excited about with this. And majority of our audience are people that are not developers that are using this. They're PMs, they're designers, they're entrepreneurs, because these are people that have always been great at building products. But previously, the only way they could get their ideas into coded software was through a developer's fingertips, right? And now they can do it with their own, through prompting. So you can see here, we got this little QR code. You can go and scan the thing.
I'm going to do it too. By the way, cool. I love that you had just enough things to say until it finished. That was pro.
Just as I planned, But so on my screen, it's booting up. It's bundling the JavaScript of this thing. It is beta. We just launched this last week, by the way. So if you kind of see on my screen here, I actually have this Spotify looking app, right?
Wow. That looks like exactly like Spotify.
It looks exactly like Spotify, right?
It's good. We're gonna be sued right now, so let's be. You're doing too good a job with this. No, that's amazing.
So it's pretty cool, right? I mean, and so what's cool is and as you keep prompting on your device, it'll just keep reloading. Like without you having to kill the app, it'll just, you can actually see the functionality getting added. And so in this use case that you and I have right now, it's like if you and I were building an app together, we could be on other sides of the planet and you could actually be not just seeing a screenshot of the thing, but actually touching it and feeling it and putting it through its paces. And so a lot of product teams, this is just changing how people do product development, It's faster to do this than design a whole bunch of Figma frames necessarily, right? So
we're gonna spend a lot of time on that. Okay, this is incredible. Like this whole episode so far is you just blowing my mind, I imagine listeners' mind, just over and over and over. Like I don't even know where to go with all this sometimes. You made a really important point that you worked on this for 7 years before you launched Bolt. A lot of people see these stats, 0 to 40 million AR in like 5-ish months. And they sometimes don't see that there was also years and years of work before that. And the reason that you guys have been so successful is all the work you did that built this web container technology, it sounds like. Is there anything there that's worth sharing, you think, of just that part of the journey? I know we'll go through like the origin and where Bolt came from, but I guess just that web container component specifically, that feels like a huge deal.
It 100% is, yeah. And I would say this is kind of, surprisingly to me, it's like still one of the contrarian viewpoints of our company. Like, despite, because over the years, it was like when we first, the WebContainer was the bet that we made the company on, just to be clear. Like StackBlitz was like a a browser-based deep technology play on, can we make a WebAssembly based operating system that can like boot in a browser in like 100 milliseconds and like run full on development tool chains. Like that was really it. And like we gotten the idea for this and kind of the insight that this might be possible. Because back when my co-founder and I came out to the Valley, he and I grew up down the street from each other in Chicago, learned how to code together at 13 and built stuff ever since. And we came out to the Valley in 2012, and we just had the good fortune of bumping into Dylan Field and Evan Wallace when they were building Figma in the early days. And that was, I don't think a lot of people are like, know that like Figma was also a browser-based deep technology play. Like when their first pitch for Figma, they didn't have a design tool. Their first pitch was this 3D ball dropping into water inside of a browser tab. And the pitch basically was, browsers have this new capability called WebGL and the predecessor to WebAssembly. And with these things, for the first time, like you could actually, create a graphics rendering engine that you could then build a design tool on top of. But you're going to have to write that rendering engine from scratch because nothing exists that can just compile into WebGL or whatever. If you want the performance you need, et cetera, it's going to take us years to do. But if we do it, we think this will change everything for design. And obviously, we know how that story, has panned out now. And back in 2016, 2017, Albert, my co-founder, and I saw the same sort of story begin to play out, but for web development and like development environments. And specifically, there was some stuff that landed in browsers like WebAssembly, shared memory, service workers, like these different APIs. And we were like, oh, wow, like it should be possible theoretically, like to write an operating system that in WebAssembly that could, run Node.js and NPM and all the tool chains on top of it that you need to do web development. And that would be huge because setting up developer environments it's a pain for beginners. Like a lot of people churn out. Like the first thing you do when you learn how to code is not even learning how to code, it's how to set up your computer to even start writing the code, right? If you go join Netflix or any of these other FAANG companies, the first month or two is you being onboarded to run that stuff on your computer and set up your environment, right? And we're like, if we could just have that be something you click a link and it just boots in your browser, that'd be huge. It's also, if you look at the other productivity apps that have really worked on the web, they've all had this compute model, right? Figma, when you open a Figma document, there's not like some cloud VM that gets spun up for you to render the documents you're dragging things around. It's using your CPU and your memory to do the work. Same thing with Google Docs, right? That's the only model that's ever scaled to 1 billion users. And so when you look at cloud IDEs, like, Cloud9 was the first one back in 2009 or so, the way these have always worked is that your browser is basically doing nothing when you go to them. It's every user that gets connected, there has to be a cloud VM that gets spun up for them. And then your browser's just kind of like taking your keystrokes, sending it to the server, and then, sending back the result of it. And that's how all these other AI, code text to app sort of tools work. They're all using cloud VMs. And the problem is, on a small scale, it can work. But as you scale it up, there's not even 100 million VMs to rent on the planet. But there are like 1 billion devices that you can run this stuff on. And so that's kind of what we've seen with Bolt, where, it's, if you want to build a product that's going to be able to scale to that size, you have to kind of look at all factors and go, we have to make sure the technology provides the best experience, zero latency, transient costs. There's a permissive free tier, right? Because the other problem with the server is like if you have a free tier, people are mining Bitcoin on it. They're DDoSing people using your servers, right? So inevitably you have to nerf these things and roll them back. But if it's all done on the end device, it doesn't matter, right? So that's WebContainer was the key piece, and what we struggled with. It took us like 4 or 5 years something to build WebContainer. What we struggled with for the years after that was just how to build a product around it because developers loved it, but they weren't using it in ways that they would pay money for, and as much as the nerd side of me wished that would be enough, that it's like building cool technology was enough. It's like, it's not like this. We're here to build a venture scale company. And so that, that was kind of why we were kind of at the end of the journey where it was like, we're taking shots on goal, and we, at some point we just got a connected bat, right?
There's a lot of really interesting lessons from this journey that I think are counterintuitive. One is you basically were building a tech first and then looking for a problem to solve later, which is often what people tell you not to do, and it worked out in this case. The other interesting takeaway here is it feels like Ajax. It's like a similar moment to when Ajax came out, and then everyone's just like, "Wow, you can build new things here." So it feels like there's a lesson here of just if there's a new technology that has enabled something big that we think maybe let's just work there for a while and see if something comes up. And then I think the other lesson here is just as a founder, just survive as long as you can, because you may find something that works.
All great points, right? Because you're dead right. Like fortunately, my co-founder and I we had built a lot of unsuccessful startups before this. Like we spent most of the 2010s like churning through ideas on things. And so what we had conviction on was like, this seems like a technology that will be important. Like it seems like the web is the most ubiquitous, like the kind of the pitch or the theory in our head was like, the web is the most ubiquitous platform in the world. But yet it has you can't use the web to like build the web, right? Like every other platform, like Mac has, Xcode, Windows has Visual Studio. The web had nothing. And we were like, at a minimum, Google should probably buy this thing from us. Like it seems like that it should probably be part of Chrome at a minimum, right? And we thought, hey, this could be a huge enabler. Like the vision of just making it as easy to build full stack applications as using Canva, right? It's like, just seemed really compelling. But when you do that sort of risky deep technology play, you need to, and we were very good about this. Like the previous company Albert and I did, we bootstrapped it all the way through to acquisition. So we understood, and we were like living hand to mouth to like bootstrap that thing. So we understood how to have a low burn rate and take a lot of shots on goal and make every dollar stretch beyond what anyone would think is reasonable or possible. And that's how we played our hands with StackBlitz. We didn't raise money for the first 2 or 3 years of the company's life. We were bootstrapping it. When we did raise money, we barely spent it, largely because it was like, we need to just take a lot of smart bets, and it doesn't make sense. And I would just say generally, like, until you see pull, like just people pulling the product out of your hands, you don't want to be spending money. You should be like default no. And like when you go and buy software, you should be going, we're a tiny startup. Can you sell it for half? Like everything you buy, I just like keep the burn rate as low as possible, because you need as many shots on goal as you can possibly get, because you have no idea. And I think just generally for startups, that's the right way, in my view, to approach it, unless you're seeing, again, immediate demand and pull or whatever. I think that'd be kind of like maybe the extra context I'd add on top is like, I think that we ended up doing a good job of like being extremely conservative during a time in which, during 2020 through 2020 and 2021, which were times where exuberance and growing headcount was like KPIs of companies, right? And were things that were being, with a lot of emotional force of like, hey, you guys ought to be doing this. And I'm glad that we didn't heed the advice, because if we had tripled the company and kicked up the burn rate, there would be no Bolt, they're like, we would have got out of business a long time ago. Right. So, I think that's the hard thing about being an entrepreneur. I think is you kind of have to, there are periods of time where, you have to make judgment calls that are not going to be the consensus view. Maybe years later, people, it'll become the consensus view, but, you got to have like confidence in your convictions on how to best play the hand, so.
There's so many great lessons here. I think just this idea of just staying alive. Dalton came on the podcast. He's a partner YC once, and he just had this phrase, just don't die. And that's exactly what you guys did. 7 years of just trying it until something worked. And I love that you actually were planning to shut down the company right before you launched Bolt. And I know you launched it with just like a tweet, right? That was the launch moment.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe talk about that moment of just after launch signs that, okay, this is working. Something's different.
Yeah. So day one, it was like, there's a great reception to like the tweet. we were like, wow, this is like, one of the biggest things, on launch day reception we've ever seen. And I think on the first day, I think we added like 60K of ARR or something, which was like, I mean, crazy. We were at, again, we were at 600. So we added like 10% in a day. And I remember our DevOps engineer, like, he was the one who would flag. He was like, guys, we added 60K today. Like, this is crazy. And I was like, yeah. But like, this is launch day. Like it's there's the TechCrunch peak of initiation, or, the classic startup,
Trough of sorrow.
Yeah. I was like, listen, God, I'm trying to like temper enthusiasm for the team. I'm like, this is great. Got a lot of work to do, And then the next day, we added 80K or whatever it was, right? And it just kind of kept going. And all the while, like the product we put out, we built the thing in 90 days. We built Bolt. So there's a lot of things that were missing in the product, like basic stuff. And which again, like we cut the right corners on the thing to get it online. But we had this just growing influx of people using it going, how is there not a mobile responsive view? Like how are chat messages not, we got to 20 million of ARR without a mobile responsive view, by the way. Just throwing that out there, it was like the iPhone not having copy and paste until like iPhone 5 or whatever, this was that for us. It was like, you looked at it on mobile, it was terrible. Right. But there's like stuff like that. So we had to just like, and then we're a small team. And so we're completely unprepared for just the growing traffic. And there's a whole bunch. I mean, the list of problems that were happening every single day was nuts. I mean, like, to start, we had never had a plan on StackBlitz.com, for more than $9. Like, we had one price, $9, right? And so we launched Bolt. We're like, again, we don't think they will think, hopefully people like this, but $9 doesn't get you a lot of inference. And so people burn through $9 in like 48 hours, and they're like, I want to buy more. How do I buy more? Why wouldn't you take my money? So it was like that within the week, we just completely new pricing plans where you could upgrade, which ended up has kind of now become the standard. All the other guys in the space have copied this, where, prior to Bolt going online, Copilot, like all these previous AI things, everyone kind of wanted this like Netflix model where there's like one price, it's like all you can eat or whatever. And the problem is, like, if you do that, like, you can't really, like, you want the inference cost to be kind of low because you're expecting people to use it a lot, right? And so you can't do these agentic experience things. So it would be too expensive. And what we ended up stumbling into is that, okay, actually people are willing to pay more, right? People want to pay for more inference because we've crossed this threshold where, you can get a very tangible ROI. Like, that this is providing a tremendous amount of value to you, right? So anyway, so that was like one thing. And, the servers were just melting. Anthropic ran out of GPUs for us. Like, Dario emailed me. He was like, listen, we don't have anything more to give you at the time. So we're like, how do we deal with, it was just bananas, for weeks. It felt like in 300, when they're surrounded by like 10,000 people and our team is just like doing everything. Like, there's 15, 20 people just doing everything. Like, my chief of staff and I were doing customer support 95% of the day, anyways. So yeah, it was a crazy wild time. And I mean, it still is. I remember we've had a little bit more time to kind of grow into this. And usually, I mean, as a company, to grow into like even 20 million ARR, you get a year at least or something, to kind of staff up.
Often decades.
Yeah. So it's, that was what's hard. We go to people and kind of be like, what do we do? And the playbooks we get back are like, take 6 months or a year or something. And it's like, this isn't going to work, and which is fine. This is what it's all about, right? I mean, this is it's at least for me, that level of intensity is it's challenging, fun challenges,
Wow. Okay. This is just nonstop wild shit. So you mentioned that your team was about 20 people through all this. You guys are growing at this insane rate, 20 people. How is this possible? What has allowed you to grow this much, this fast with such a small team? And this 300 visual is interesting. I imagine having these Spartans is a big part of it. Just what has allowed you to do this?
Yeah. I think a lot of it, again, I mean, if you kind of look at where a lot of the other folks in the code gen, text to app space have really been struggling, a lot of it has been scaling their servers and stuff, right? Because it was kind of like, both this overnight success 7 years in the making. Like all of this stuff, like there's no way, if you rewind like year two, there's no way we could have, we would not be at the growth and on DAUs and revenue or whatever. There's just no way. And so a lot of it is the technology we made. And most importantly, it's been the people, it's rare to find startups where you have kind of the core group of 5, 6, 7 people, that have been there for 5 years plus, right? Like that's a pretty rare thing to see. Like in Silicon Valley, it is usually folks are kind of at a job for, start for kind of a year or two, they kind of go to another one. And the problem with the turnover like that is that you can't take like really long bets like the one we did. And so we've had kind of from the get-go, again, this comes back from bootstrapping the previous company, like just having, less people and more context per head. Like that's just been how we do it. And we feel very strongly about it. And the reason for that is one, that you can have high levels of trust with anyone you're talking to, because you know that they have a lot of context. It's not like, this person's completely in the dark in some corner of the company. The second thing, everyone has agency to actually get stuff done front to back, right? And there's no political committee to get stuff approved by. There's so when you look at what happened with Bolt, I mean, we had engineers that were like front to back, were on a call with someone running into an issue, going and fixing it, cooking up the UI on the spot, and landing the thing, like without involving anyone else on the team, right? And that so I think it was the culmination of just high trust and people, like we all just have enjoyed working together over the past. I think that's the only reason anyone would ever stay right at a company for that long or whatever. And so those sorts of stressful situations, I think, are make or break, right? Like those are make or break for any team. And so that I think that what's happened is really, it is a direct reflection of the strength and the bonds of the people that are making this thing and supporting the thing.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, that you guys have been working together for many years. Most people won't have that benefit. When you're hiring people, when you hire this initial team, is there anything you look for that you think maybe people aren't looking for enough? Anything you prioritize when you're hiring new folks? Is it this idea that they can do a lot? They can do customer calls, they can do design, they can do engineering.
Yeah, that for us, and even if the folks we're hiring now, it's like hiring people that don't care about the titles, and they don't care about, it's not like they're people. Of course, it's where people have like a career trajectory and that sort of thing, but it's like they really are motivated by just working on cool things and are checking their ego at the door, and they're there to like collectively build something great, not just kind of be the brilliant jerk, right? Most of the people that we've hired have been in Europe, and we're a fully remote company. My co-founder and I are in the Bay Area. It's funny, like back in 2018, we like rented an office and stuff, and we were like commuting into it because we thought we'd hire people here. And like a year into it, we were like, what are we doing? Like, you and I are coming to like an office for 10 people. We've hired, the people working for us are, in Europe or across the US. And, I think, and we have one or two other people we've hired that are in the Bay Area at this point. But yeah, I think we kind of look for folks that are intrinsically just trying to build great stuff and are interested. And then the first people that we hired the reason we found them is that they were users of StackBlitz, like that was a lot of people that, the majority of people we hired at the company have been people that actually came from our community, basically. And so when we want to hire people, we put out a tweet and say, hey, we're hiring an engineer. And then we get, DMs or whatever. Right. But yeah, those are the general, like kind of qualities we look for though,
I'm excited to chat with Christina Gilbert, the founder of One Schema, one of our longtime podcast sponsors. Hi, Christina.
Yes. Thank you for having me on, Lenny.
What is the latest with One Schema? I know you now work with some of my favorite companies like Ramp, Vanta, Scale, and Watershed. I heard that you just launched a new product to help product teams import CSVs from especially tricky systems like ERPs.
Yes, so we just launched One Schema file feeds, which allows you to build an integration with any system in 15 minutes as long as you can export a CSV to an SFTP folder. We see our customers all the time getting stuck with hacks and workarounds, and the product teams that we work with don't have to turn down prospects because their systems are too hard to integrate with. We allow our customers to offer thousands of integrations without involving their engineering team at all.
I can tell you that if my team had to build integrations like this, how nice would it be to be able to take this off my roadmap and instead use something like One Schema, and not just to build it, but also to maintain it forever.
Absolutely, Lenny. We've heard so many horror stories of multi-day outages from even just a handful of bad records. We are laser focused on integration reliability to help teams end all of those distractions that come up with integrations. We have a built-in validation layer that stops any bad data from entering your system, and One Schema will notify your team immediately of any data that looks incorrect.
I know that importing incorrect data can cause all kinds of pain for your customers and quickly lose their trust. Christina, thank you for joining us. And if you want to learn more, head on over to oneschema.co. That's oneschema.co. I want to ask a couple more questions about Bolt, and then I want to zoom out and talk about where things are heading in the future. Let's talk about prioritization. I imagine you guys are just like barraged with, as you described after you launched, you're just barraged with requests. Like you said, there's 1 million monthly active users. I can't even imagine the feature requests you guys are getting, plus all the stuff you want to build. Just how do you go about deciding what to prioritize and what to actually build?
There's a lot of things that you just don't even know are possible to do, right? And so people aren't going to be necessarily explicitly asking for them. And so there's been kind of a couple of these where we, kind of use our gut instinct on hey, this no one's asking for this in meaningful numbers at least, but we think this is going to be a big deal. Best example was last week with native mobile app support. That's the by reception, the biggest thing we've ever launched. And it was something that even internally at the company, some folks this, I don't know, people are yelling about these other things, right? And it's always this balance of some much are we just triaging various things versus net new capabilities. But it's this strikes me as an important one where we put some chips into the middle of the table on, and kind of dead right. It's just this mind blowing experience. And now there's thousands of mobile apps being created a day that weren't before. And how does that change things? I mean, that's that now there's small businesses that are, they would have never made an iPhone app before. It made no sense. It's super expensive. Now that's not the case. I mean, so there's kind of these things where it's hey, we should go and, take bets here. But there's kind of this, I think the best analogy would just be it's kind of I think, you working at a restaurant, being a chef, it's there's some amount of, there's feedback from the customers, right? Of this thing didn't taste good. And then there's hey, we've been kind of cooking something interesting. And this tastes, I don't know, I think people are going to like this. I think this is a killer dish. And so you kind of have to balance those things. I think it's actually largely a function of just, years of experience doing it. I think if you kind of rewound 10 years ago, I would have had the years of getting my butt kicked by the free market to have kind of cultivated a sense of this stuff. You kind of have to build your own gut instinct for it, I guess, is the best way of putting it.
To unpack this a little bit further, do you have kind of a cadence you guys work through to decide what to build and ship? Do you have a weekly meeting every week? Because I know the answer is probably really it's just chaos constantly and fires we're putting out constantly. I know that's a lot of it, but is there some kind of process that you guys have for deciding what to build and how to share it and just work with the team?
We all meet every day, pretty much the entire team gets on a call and we just kind of
meet
front to back.
Like a Zoom?
Yep. Yeah. Every day at 8 a.m. Pacific, we're on a Zoom for
every day, the whole company.
Pretty much the entire company. Yeah.
Wow. For an hour. Okay.
Yeah. And we just go over everything. And I think we're going to probably start as the team's kind of growing, we're going to start, splintering off into, different, syncs or whatever. But the thing about just having everyone in the same room every day is that it's, a lot of people will complain that it's, this is, on Twitter, you'll see people say, oh, it's the most expensive use of everyone's time. Right. But it's Yep, but like there's 0% fidelity loss in that. Like everything every day is being audited front to back and being discussed front to back. And so when you're in these times of just extreme growth, right? It's you want as close to 0%, loss, right, on communications. And so that's how we've been doing especially since Bolt went online. And I think it was like the week after Bolt went online, we were like every day until we're through this or whatever, we're all getting on a phone call every day and we're front to back doing this. But and then, again, another reason why more context on, and less heads, every person at the company is aware of everything else going on at the company, right? So people can independently be making decisions that are generally by default more often correct than not,
That is so interesting. I've never heard that before, especially for a company growing that is like yours. That is super interesting that's what you do.
I don't think we're going to do that forever.
Yeah, of course. But
that's
that's I think that's a really cool thing to know that works and that's worked for you. Where do you, so say you talk about stuff, then where do you put stuff? Where do you put your roadmap? Where do you plan? Just like what tools are kind of in the stack of the company's tool set?
Yeah, on the engineering side, we use linear like heavily. On kind of product, road mapping, I think we're using Notion and, kind of making like PRD type stuff in Notion, and then we use Figma for like design. And we use Bolt for a lot of design and prototyping at this point, as you can imagine. Yeah, I think it, the tooling is, nothing crazy. There's nothing crazy sophisticated, I think we're gonna be investing a lot more, and especially as you start splintering people out of being on the same call every day. So that's where this stuff really starts to matter, because you don't have a time where you're able to dynamically catch things that work can be brought up.
I love that you guys use PRDs. I love that you even use that term. There's a lot of talk of just like, oh, we got Bolt now, we got all these tools, we don't need PRDs, we're just gonna create a prototype immediately. That's it. Talk about just like why you still find that useful and just what you put into your PRD, whatever that is for you.
Unless there's like something that's very sophisticated that we're working on, we tend to keep them pretty light. I like to just have the minimal amount of context possible that just ensures everyone's on the same page and that the key outcomes for whatever feature that we're working on are gonna be present when we get there. Because the things that when these documents get really beefy, if you're looking at it, God, there's so much stuff to decipher. The problem is a lot of people are going to gloss over it when it gets kicked to development or design or whatever. It's just going to start snowballing into a lot of stuff. It's just better to keep it as simple as you possibly can. And at least that's kind of our approach to the thing. And often it's some of these things are like, here's a link to a Bolt.
Here's what it might look like.
Yeah, like here's you and not just look like. Here's kind of a working demo of what it will effectively feel like, right? And be, because that just if a picture is worth 1,000 words, like a live actual demo is worth millions. Like you can feel it. It's real, and that's what we're seeing. Like a lot of the businesses that are adopting Bolt now, that's the use case that they're using this for, is high fidelity prototyping, because it's like now faster to make real prototypes using Bolt, and they writing, before it's too expensive. Like the idea of like, let's prototype it by having the engineers code a prototype. It's like that, it would take forever. It would be expensive. And now it's faster to do this with Bolt in code and have a real working software product than dragging around frames in Figma to actually make a static version of it.
So let's actually talk about that. Just how far have companies gotten with Bolt? Like prototypes is where everyone's kind of imagining these tools are at. I know that the goal isn't just to make prototypes, it's to build full scale. I imagine long-term Salesforce, Atlassian style companies that scale. Just what are some examples of products people have built with Bolt that are maybe would surprise people, just how far they've gotten?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're starting greenfield stuff, you can use Bolt to build, like on the Salesforce as an example, right? One of the first people that signed up for Bolt was this guy named Paul, and he's an entrepreneur and doesn't know how to code. Built a CRM in 3 weeks that has like AI built into it, Stripe for billing, etc. He had gotten a quote from an agency for this. It was like going to be 30 grand and take 6 months. He had it done in 3 weeks, and I think he spent like $300 on Bolt for the thing. And so it's like, this is like, and he's making money off of this. Like, this is his startup, right?
Okay, so he built this and he's selling it. Like, people are paying to use it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there's many such cases of this, right? When if you're looking at greenfield projects, 100%. Like, today with this current state of frontier models, you can absolutely build production grade software, right? You're not going to get a zero shot, but you're going to spend a couple of days, weeks, whatever. But the cost reduction there, 30 grand versus $300. I mean, it's 99% cheaper. 6 months versus 3 weeks. I mean, it's like order of magnitude sort of faster delivery on the thing. And those numbers have helped for the people that we talk to that are building these full stack, apps. Like, people, they go to Upwork, they get a quote for 5 grand. They have it done within $50, It's just nuts what you're able to do with this thing. And so I think on the flip side, a lot of the like existing companies, there are very legitimate use cases where things are greenfield spun up. Good examples like public websites, like marketing pages, landing pages, whatever have you. Folks are adopting Bolt to just power those instead of using Webflow, for example. Because it's like, this is simpler to use than Webflow, and it integrates with the existing design system of the company and et cetera, right? And the marketers can update it without knowing how to code, whatever. But then for product development teams, this is most commonly for, again, existing software businesses. They're using this to just accelerate the product development process, and in a way where it's not just like a greenfield wholesale, hey, we're building the entire thing in Bolt or whatever, right?
Can Bolt integrate with your existing code base or not yet?
We can actually open up repos in Bolt. So you can like go and use Bolt on your code base. And it kind of depends on your setup, right? Like we do have companies, again, that like have marketing sites that are using this on, or like, their admin panel or whatever. And I think it's going to be a use case that we see a lot more people orienting towards. These LLMs are not great, depending on how big your application is, though, right? These things are not quite there where if you have something that's, 1,000 files or something or more, where you're going to be able to have a really super reliable experience per se, right? Within a year, if we chat a year from now, I suspect the answer is going to be different. But so it kind of depends on the size of the app, the scale of the app, and if it's too big, you're looking at the prototyping, like just like pure acceleration, right, of product development. And if it's not, then you can just do it entirely, right, from Bolt.
So this is useful. So what would you say are the major limitations of Bolt today, where people should just know, okay, it's not going to get you here yet. Maybe in the future it will. So it sounds like if you have just like a really large existing code base, probably not the best tool yet. What else should people know?
I would say that's like probably the main one, because I think if you have a large existing code base, you're going to need something like Cursor. And you're going to need to be a developer meaningfully to be editing that stuff. I think outside of that, there's just like using any other productivity tool like Photoshop or Figma or like a DSLR or whatever. There's some level of kind of education and just kind of like, and using the tool and like learning how to use it that's required to like really unlock a lot of the maximum capabilities of the thing, right? And, the people that we see that are most successful with Bolt, like outside of developers, the people we see that are most successful are people that are amazing PMs, for example, because these are people that understand enough about how the technology works typically. And their job is to like direct developers on how to go and improve the product and go and like look into like how to actually spec this thing out in a way that's like executable without lossiness in the communication. And when you think about, okay, how would you best interact with an AI developer agent? It's basically that. You really want to be good at defining scope and helping it go and debug various things or whatever have you. And so there's a huge overlap of the skill set of just like being a rock star PM and being really good at using, frankly, any of these text to apps or code gen tools.
I love that you made that point. That's exactly the point I've been trying to make. I have a newsletter post about this because when all these tools came out, there's so many people saying, okay, PMs are dead. We don't need them anymore. We can just build things and build things so quickly and easily. What's the point? But I completely see the world the way you see it. The hard part now is it's easy to build the thing. Now it's, what the hell should we build? can we clearly articulate what it is we want to build? And then can we just have the taste to know, is this right? Is this correct? Is this good? Is this going to solve the problem? And then it's like, grow it, which is something also PMs think about. So I completely agree. Basically, it feels like PMs are, and there's a lot of PMs listen to this, so they'll love hearing this. To me, it feels like PMs are the best position role to thrive in this world.
Zero question. I mean, that was like, and as Bolt was growing, and like we were like, because we were a developer product before this. And so we expected the audience to be 100% developers that were using this. And we just kept seeing more and more and more people that were not developers using it, to the point where it's like 67% of our users are not developers, right? At this point. And, when I started talking to these folks, at first I was just like weird or whatever, it was like, well, what's going on here? But then it just kind of clicked, is like, oh, well, this is going to change everything. Like the entire software world order is going to get rewritten here, because like the way that companies are organized to build software today, totally going to change, right? Like the idea that, again, like PMs are the people that really understand, like to the pixel level, like what matters into making a great product experience. And often they're having, and listen, I'm a developer myself. They have to go and harangue the developers to like get things to be how they really ought to be, like to the smallest levels. And now, like how this is going to work, if you fast forward, 1 to 5 years, whatever, like PMs they're going to be writing quote unquote, instead of just writing a Jira ticket and waiting for a developer to do it. The developers are going to be able to work on, intellectually challenging tasks that LLMs are not well suited for, right? And still being augmented by LLMs to do it. But PMs are going to be able to go in and just make the changes themselves. And just what blew my mind is it's not priced in into any of these companies out there. And it's not reflected in the org charts of all the software companies in the world right now. That is going to completely change. The winners, at least, the org charts are going to completely change in how they approach building products and shipping products. Completely, and it's starting. This is the beginning.
I want to follow that thread, but first of all, I want to also add, and correct me if you disagree with this, I think when we talk about PMs, it also applies to founders, like product thinking founders.
100%.
It's a very similar role. And then I think it's also important to note, like if you also have engineering skills and design skills, you will be at an advantage. Like that only helps you. But if you're like looking at this triangle of the triad of product engineering, PM, it feels like the PME skills are the ones that will be most important and valuable. Although it'd be great if you could also be in code and if you could also design really well.
Absolutely. And to me, it's like the most exciting mix. I think like PMs, designers, and entrepreneurs that are non-technical, that's the most exciting thing to me, just because it's a brand new market that's being unlocked here. Like for the first time ever, these folks can like directly code and build the product themselves, like their vision directly into the software itself. That's going to change everything. That is changing everything.
So you talk about how org charts are going to change. What are you imagining there? Is it just like fewer engineers mostly, or what do the future org charts look like?
Good question. And I bet you there's going to be, there's going to be like some Gardner analysis someday, years from now or whatever, that's like, here's like how the best, some term is applied to how the best companies are organizing, but I mean, I think that we're going to, I think that you're going to see developers probably being pulled off of a lot of and generally speaking, pulled off of a lot of, user interface type work, I would imagine, except for the most complicated of those things. And you're going to see designers and PMs really, really leading the charge and being responsible for crafting those experiences, and perhaps having a developer attached to like be reviewing the code and making sure, the guiding, the code that they're writing, reviewing those pull requests and et cetera. And I think maybe even the engineers are, like you pointed out, having engineering skills is not going to hurt you. It's going to make you way more effective, right? So I think but I do think there's going to be, there's going to be the leverage that the front end engineer is going to have is it is now insane. It's only going to get more so. And so I could see there just being fewer front engineers attached to, I'm seeing more product, and design folks with, 1 or 2 engineers or something, and, really having a larger matching of like kind of pods like that, something like that strikes me as probably how this is going to start trending towards.
This touches on, we had a researcher from OpenAI on the podcast. She actually started her career. She worked at Anthropic first as a front-end engineer, and said that once she saw what Claude could do for front-end engineering, she's like, I need to move to a different function. And so she moved into research because she saw that role disappearing potentially. And that's exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. I don't know if you have a clear thesis on this yet, but say you just had a kid. Say your kid is going to, in the future, starting school. Let's say your kid was starting college soon. Do you have thoughts on just what skills / areas you think they should go into versus avoid that maybe are popular now and be less popular?
Understanding how to leverage these AI tools is key. Like I wouldn't necessarily, I think maybe getting a basic understanding of like how programming works, et cetera, right, is great, right?
So it's like technical foundations, just understanding how how systems work, how coding works.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, right? But it doesn't have to be like, because I think back to like, if Bolt existed, like Albert and I say this to each other all the time, like, since the get-go of StackBlitz, so we've been building the thing that we wish we had when we were 13, and heck, for everything we built since then. And especially with Bolt, I mean, it's like, I don't know if I would have gone as deep as I did on, learning how to code and being an engineer if that had been around then. Like the whole reason we got into it is we had ideas for products and businesses that we wanted to build. And coding was just like a necessary requirement, in order to do that. So, I think that, and that said, it's like, I think people need to follow their intrinsic interests. If folks are really interested in, really getting the nitty gritty of how computers work and program languages work and compilers or whatever, like go for it. Like, I think it's still going to be relevant, like it's, I don't know if we're going to really have, hey, we'll see. But, to the degree that there's like AGI where it's like, we don't have to think about anything ever again.
Yeah. That's always the answer here. Yeah. Do we need to know anything?
Yeah. It's like, if we're at that point, it's kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think from what I feel like seems like the next at least 5 years of what we're looking at, it's like, I think people are still there's still gonna be places to specialize and become really go deep. But I think you want to go into it with the idea, not like, I'm going to go and learn computer science because I'm going to get a job for sure out of it. I just think that's like generally, not a good, this is like my co-founder and I, like we didn't go to college, and my co-founder dropped out of college after like a semester or something. But like, I didn't go because I was like, I just, we're coding, like we're kind of, we're doing contracting at the time, making money. And it was like, this is like a lot of, I would have been, been like $100,000 of debt by the end of the thing, just for like 4 years at in-state tuition at U of I, $120,000, I think at that time. And it's like, and lo and behold, I mean, there's a huge issue with this where people are, kind of, there was a prevailing thought, societally, like that going to college in the early 2010s, early 2010s or late 2000s, like you're going to get a job on the other side that's going to be high paying. And that just has not been the case for a lot of people. So, and I think that's just going to continue to be the case. Right. And so again, not to deter people from doing it, but it's like, you have to go into it being like, for sure, this is what I want. And I want to go and be the best and, that I can possibly be at this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I like that your answer to your kid's going to be like, don't even go to college potentially.
Unless they want to, right? It's like, I think at 18, it's a huge ask. I mean, it's a huge ask, and not even at 18. It's like at 17, because you have to you can go apply for colleges. It's just such a huge, like a 6-figure debt commitment to someone who's making $0 or negative dollars, and and that young. It just, unless you really have conviction, it costs nothing to go and explore and learn for free online. So
I'm going to come back to the skills that you think are going to be most important. And let me try to mirror back a few things you said that I very much agree with. So it feels like if you want to be successful in the world where AI can build things for you more and more, what I'm hearing is get good at figuring out what people need and want, what problems they need solved, get good at articulating it really well to the AI tools, And there's this talk, you don't need to be a great prompt engineer. You don't need to work on prompting, but it feels like it's more and more important because you tell it something and it goes off and builds a thing. Like, just if you're clear about it, it'll save you a lot of time. So it's be good at figuring out problems people need solved, figure out how to articulate that problem well and ask for a clear solution. Figure out how to grow the thing. Feels like that's still going to be a need because Bolt's not going to go and like find I could see that start running paid ads and stuff like that, but it feels like that's going to be an ongoing need. And then I feel like there's this kind of unstuck step, like helping AI get unstuck. And it feels like that's where maybe engineering skills will come in more and more. Thoughts on just that skill?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, so we actually, 2 weeks ago, I think, we announced this like program called like Bolt Builders. And it's basically like the Genius Bar at the Apple Store, where, as folks are building on Bolt that are not developers, they'll run into, some nook or cranny of like where the AI just, cannot figure it out or whatever. And I think it's just going to continue to be the case for time to come. That's our position. And that's why we spun up this program.
And these are humans that help you out.
Humans. These are and people that we're like certifying. And so, when in Bolt in the coming weeks or whatever, there's going to be a button where you can just say, hey, connect me with, a certified like expert. And you can chat with them live and they'll help you get unstuck and you pay, I don't know, $50 an hour, whatever it is. Right. And then you get unjammed and you keep prompting, and again, it's like, I just think this stuff it just all seems like gravy to me. Like engineers get to focus on like difficult challenges, not like cookie cutter, let's make another CRUD app stuff, like they get to like debugging is challenging and fun, and like going and work on intellectually stimulating tasks and like all this stuff that's just copy pasta over and over, all this error happens. Just like let the AI do all that crap, right? Like,
this is like a potentially new job for now, at least, just unstuck the AI, which I think over time it'll get better and better, and we maybe won't need these people. But I love that it's like now AI first and person second versus person building the thing, and then AI. Like when Copilot launched, it was just like, cool, here's a little suggestion for this function, and now it's flipped. Here's like everything, and then I don't know what to do here. Help us here, and then it's like a human suggestion. Isn't that interesting? It's like human Copilot is flipping it.
Totally, yeah. That's what's wild is I think Sonnet was the first model that flipped the equation, because that was really us and all Cursor and all these other things. The rapid growth started the second Sonnet went online. Right. Like we actually tried building Bolt like almost exactly a year ago with like kind of the frontier models at the time. Spent like a week or two building it. It just didn't work. Like the code output was not reliable enough. It would constantly it would be a broken app or it'd look ugly or whatever. And then we got a sneak peek at the Sonnet stuff in May and we were like, oh, okay. Like we should take that project back off the shelf and greenlight it because this might be it. And lo and behold, that's exactly what has happened, But yeah, that's the big deal. That is kind of under the hood. Like this is what's going on here is a very critical threshold has been passed with LLM's ability to write production grade code and apps that actually look beautiful and actually function well. It's not perfect, but there's kind of this 0 to 1 moment that's happened where it's like, okay, so like now, yeah. Now the AI is the first thing, and then you're kind of popping a developer in every now and then versus the other way around,
I did not know that. I didn't realize that so much of this was unlocked with, like, it's sitting on top of Anthropic's work and specifically Sonnet. That was the first model you're saying that could code well enough.
Yeah, and wow. Zero question. I mean,
that is fascinating. Just like the amount of I don't know, revenue and business and commerce that one model has unlocked is insane. I did not realize that.
It is. And in retrospect, like I'd mentioned, like we'd never done an AI product at StackBlitz. And, it's like, it's tempting because it's like when, kind of when ChatGPT went online, everyone started kind of adding AI to their products. And we're just like, we just didn't see like a clear place for like a really added value. Right. So I was not super bullish on, a lot of people are like, hey, the AGI is going to be here in 2023. I mean, like there's all this stuff that was being said. And I was like, I just don't know if I necessarily buy how fast people say it's going to move. And to a certain degree, like that was like the correct view. What I didn't really think about though, is like, if LLMs are going to get better at a specific vertical, kind of like which are going to be the things that it would be. And, if you look at like law, for example, you want to make the best LLM for, looking at case law or the problem with that stuff is it's not deterministic. Like the judge's ruling is dependent kind of on society's view of things at the time, right? Political stuff going, like the jury, there's a ton of things that it's not deterministic. And so you can't really create a lot of training data that's going to be like super reliable, right? And produce really good results. And you can't just like make up cases and say, theoretically, the judge would say this. You know what I mean? It's like, it just doesn't work. Software is deterministic. When you write code and you hit run, it either runs or it doesn't. And that is that's the key insight Anthropic really had. They just went deep. And then this is what they're doing. It's just reinforcement learning on basically permutating every type of app you could ever build and just spinning up tens of thousands of cores or whatever to do that, just building tons of training data and doing reinforcement learning and making their LLMs the best in the world at building beautiful, reliable applications. I'm extremely bullish, right? I mean, it makes technical sense why of anything, LLMs are going to get insanely better at writing code than probably most other types of applications for LLMs, simply because it's something that can be extremely deterministic and permutated thousands and thousands and thousands of times per second, right? And so anyway, so that, I think the broader trend here is, and Sonnet has woken everyone up, like Google and OpenAI, everyone is now gunning for coding because how big is the market opportunity to rewrite the software world order? It's trillions of dollars or something, right? Like the world runs on software, So I think that just kind of in a macro, the kind of the highest macro view, and why we went and raised money for Bolt, it's like this seems like an extremely clear shot. There's not this like you can kind of separate the hype of what people say and blah blah blah. When you break it down technically, this makes sense. It makes sense what's going to happen here. And so and for us, we're like we are just so happen to be well positioned to like go and enable people to like kind of ride this wave of the innovation that is here in LLMs and is going to just keep coming, and therefore enable more people to build even crazier, amazing software, right? So that's our worldview, at least, of kind of what's going on here at like the macro.
And when did Sonnet even come out? It's been a while, right?
I think they officially, I think it was in June when they officially put it online.
Okay.
Yeah.
So since June, like this is the worst it will ever be, the state of AI coding. And it's already this good. And there hasn't been anything, like they haven't launched their new model since last June. So this tells us just how quickly things are going to start moving once they launch their next model. And as you said, everyone's gunning now for this because they realized we're behind on the coding piece. So, wow, this is going to get crazy.
I agree. Yeah, it's been like kind of, again, like it's not, there was no blog post that laid all this out for us. It's just been kind of this like,
you just noticed the code was really good, basically.
And from there, it's just, we've been piecing together all this other stuff. And so it's been a kind of like the thrill of like a murder mystery of like, what is going on here?
Really?
Yeah.
Like just piecing together like what you've seen Anthropic releasing. Is that what you mean? Like, what have you been noticing murder mystery wise?
Well, and then the impacts of like Bolt, where it's like we have people that are not technical using this. How are they using it? Why are they doing this? It's and then just kind of all the stuff we've talked about in this podcast has been the result of 9 months of just R&D and seeing the results of it and going, what? And then digging in, doing another thing, then going, what again? And then it just keeps happening because there's no charted course for this,
It's like an anthropology, or as if that's the right term, of just like watching it's like an emergent discovery, it sounds like, versus you had the strategy here. We're going to do this, we're a Sonnet to launch, this thing will happen.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. It's the best way to put it. It's exactly that. And so it's very interesting to just, to
watch it and be a part of it, I imagine.
Yeah.
And I think as people say, okay, these are just toys, they're prototypes, like it's not going to work with your existing code, it's not going to scale. Like it's important to note just what we talked about. This is a model from last June that this is possible on, and everybody's working on the next cutting edge model that will make this even better. And that's going to come real soon. Okay. Amazing. Okay. And just have a few more questions to kind of close out this conversation. One is just, what is coming next for Bolt? What are some of the cool new features that'll be launching before this comes out, maybe right after this comes out, and maybe in mid-March.
Yeah. Okay. So by the time, and I'm going to go back and tell our engineers, like I said this on this podcast.
I've committed. Sorry, guys.
This is I found actually being a leaky faucet on, talking on podcasts and stuff is, my engineers like, how could you tell them? Like, you have to ship it faster now. Like you got to make it real, right?
Or we'll get AI on it.
No, yeah, but it's I think for us, it's like again, we've seen a lot of PMs, designers, entrepreneurs, etc., using Bolt, and so we're really looking at how to better fit in with the tools that folks are using to do those things today. Bolt's not going to replace them or something, right? And for if you're working at a company, like how do you integrate this stuff with your existing business and your existing product and code base? Because that's the question we often get from people is, how do I open my, we're talking to one of the FANG companies the other day, how do we open our production code base in this, that's 20 years old? I'm like, you don't. That's not none of this stuff. That's not what you do. This is for rapid product development in your use case. So the features that we're going to be shipping, I'm pretty stoked about this one. So we've been working on this for a while, and we've partnered up with a company called Anima to do this. But basically, so on any Figma URL, when you're looking at a design that you've made, if you just put bolt.new in front of that URL and hit enter, it's going to suck that design into Bolt and turn it into a full stack app or mobile app. Just
that is genius.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's going to be nuts. Yeah. I mean, it's really fun to use because, when you're, whether you're a developer, designer, or whatever, going and taking that and turning it into an actual coded app. And the thing is, once it's in Bolt, you can just keep prompting from there. You're like, we'll add another page here. Do this. So it's you can have things that where you want pixel perfect design, you can have it and it'll translate 1-to-1. Where it's splitting out the assets. Anima's been doing this since 2017, Figma to code. They've got the best agent in the world for they're the number one Figma plugin, or whatever. And so in Bolt, it's just gonna just work. It's just deeply integrated.
So it's bolt.new / the Figma URL to the design.
Yep. That's all you gotta do. And in Bolt, we're gonna also have a little Figma icon in the chat thing. So if you go to Bolt itself, you can click it and then paste the URL or whatever. But it's that. It's from Figma to full stack app in a click, literally. That's crazy. So that one's pretty cool. And then kind of the other one that we're working on is an integration with Slack. Because often, when you're talking about Figmas, Figma links or whatever at a company, you're in Slack or whatever. And so you're having conversations about, hey, we should really add a page to this that does da. And so we're actually creating a Bolt Slack bot that's whose job is to basically act like a developer on your team. And so you can be in a thread, you can be hey, I think we should add a homepage. It's yeah, okay, at Bolt, can you whip this up real quick? And it'll go and just kind of suck down the entire conversation history so far in your Slack, on that thread or whatever. You'll be okay, cool. So you kind of want me to take this Figma URL, which I can convert automatically thanks to the feature I just mentioned right before this. I can just go and convert that thing out of the box, and then you want me to add a page to it and then do this thing. Got it. I'm going to go do that. Oh, here's the URL where you can open it up and keep prompting. Yeah, I mean, so it's it's like having a developer and really kind of kick this thing out and just go make this thing look So it's those two things. I think it's, again, you start thinking about how our company's going to change how they're currently doing product development, and even just hey, we need to spin up a marketing site. Here's the Figma link. Can you do that, Bolt? Yep. Let me go do that. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm kind of excited about those two in particular, because I think they're going to be, I think it's going to be well received, and folks can be stoked about it. I hope, knock on wood. But
those are awesome features. It's I love the Slack piece because when I think about agents, there's always talk about agents. To me, the simplest way to understand it is just a Slack bot, just the AI can talk to like they're a person in Slack. And I love that's exactly what you're doing. And this is this agentic feature of just hey, you just have this engineer now that can go build stuff for you. Let me actually ask you a question along these lines that I was meaning to ask, but I forgot, is just how much your engineering team, how much, what are they using to build Bolt? I imagine it's a lot of cursor. How much is Bolt at this point involved in building Bolt? And is there any other tools that they find useful that are worth highlighting?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we definitely use Cursor. Our folks use Cursor a lot. We use Bolt a lot for the product development process, a ton. We're using it. And when we're doing basically the flow that I described, we're like things that need to be pixel perfect, we're going to Figma for. And then, and often we're taking that and we're pulling that into Bolt, because we've got access to the integration today. So pull that into Bolt and we're saying, hey, go add these things or whatever. Or just saying, hey, here's a screenshot of our UI, go, you need to do dot, dot, dot. Other AI tools that the developers are using, I think those are like the primary ones. I mean, I think we've got like a subscription to Claude and like ChatGPT and things like that. But, I think like for development, it's like Cursor's like the main thing.
Yeah, it's cool how few tools there's so many AI tools, and it's interesting how few people actually end up using. It's like Cursor, Claude, ChatGPT, and then maybe another tool like Bolt.
Totally.
Okay. Final-ish question. Say somebody is opening a Bolt for the first time. What's something that imagine you could sit next to every new user that's just trying Bolt for the first time, you could whisper a tip in their ear to be successful with Bolt. What would that tip be?
And this is like, because we have a lot of different types of users. I imagine like, you about like PMs or designers.
Let's do PMs. That's a good one. That's a lot of the audience here.
I would say talk to this thing like you do a linear ticket or a Jira ticket. that would be my advice, is like, or talk to this like you would, like you're talking to one of the developers on your team, right? And what that means is be specific on things that matter, right? And on things where also you can let it be creative. You can go to it and just say, hey, like make it prettier, and it does a good job. Like it actually does a really good job, and you like give it just vibes, And so I think for like PMs, it's like, you have the skill set, you know how to do this. This is just, think of this as your coworker, your developer coworker,
I love that. And because these tools are so easy, you just go in and it's like, tell the thing, and then cool, you have a website, it's like coded, boom, done. And what I'm hearing here is take a little time to craft your ask. It may be tempting to just like go build me a CRM. And then you're stuck with that first version. And then you're like, oh, well, okay, I didn't mean that. So it sounds like your advice is take some time to craft the ask and be clear about what you want.
Yeah, I totally, right? Especially if you have a clear vision of what you're trying to build, right? It's something that like reasonably sophisticated. And what I'd recommend everyone to do whenever if it's your first time trying Bolt and you're like, what should I have it do? And I don't have an idea. Tell it to build you a personal website. Like there's something like magic. Like you take your LinkedIn, copy and paste your LinkedIn bio and work experience, just like select text, copy, paste it. I need a website. My name is so-and-so. Here's my LinkedIn history. My favorite color is blue and I like dogs. Paste, right?
Make it prettier.
Yeah. And then you know what I mean? And then you can hit deploy. And if you don't have a .com yet, now you can, right? Like, I mean, now you have a real personal, so it's like, I think there's kind of a moment around now where it's like, okay, wow, like this, zero shot, 99.999% of the time, like you're getting a beautiful personal website that you didn't have before that would have taken you an hour on Wix, if not more. Right. And that gives you the taste of like, oh, okay, cool. So if I really take the time to think this through and like make a PRD and then kind of put that in piece by piece into this thing, the sky's the limit, So
Eric, this has been just insane on so many levels. I have so much to process. I think a lot of listeners do too. Maybe as an actual final question, I saw this story about how when you were starting StackBlitz, or maybe even before StackBlitz, you squatted in the AOL office because you had some badge that still worked. Maybe just tell that story.
Yeah, no, and that was like, kind of the thing I was like most known for. That happened like 2012, and I was like 19 years old. So it's been a very long time. I think I'm like 33 now or something. But
the statutes of limitations are expired.
Yeah, exactly. But for a while, I was like, I have to do something more notable than living in AOL. This can't be what I'm like known for, right? For now, people are like, oh, like, wait, you're the StackBlitz guy and you're the AOL guy. So when I first came out to Silicon Valley, we got into I was building a K-12 education startup at the time. And this is back during the days where Y Combinator, they only gave you like 20 grand. And so there was this offshoot of of Y Combinator called Imagine K-12. It was Jeff Ralston, who I think he was CEO of YC a couple of years back. And Imagine K-12 merged into Y Combinator a couple of years after I went through it. But anyways, they had an office space at AOL. Like at the time, AOL was trying to like reinvigorate the company, and okay, we should get like young startup blood in here. So let's like rent out office space to to teenagers basically. And so I was there, and we ended up running out of money. Like 20 grand doesn't go very far in the Valley. So like 3 or 4 months in, we're like, oh God, what do we do? And I was going to the AOL office multiple times a week because we had access cards to get in to get to the investors' offices. And I realized, I was like, like they have like couches here, and they have food, like there's ramen that you can microwave, and there's a gym where there's like a shower, and even you can do laundry. And then so I was like, I don't know. I mean, maybe I want to figure this out. I'll just live out of here. And so that's what I ended up doing for I think like 4 or 5 months. I was like living out of this headquarters over on Page Mill in El Camino in Palo Alto. And then I got away with it for a while just because the guards, the security guards, they worked 12-hour shifts. And so the guys that when I was there at night, I was coding like all day, every day, basically. So the guys at night just were like, dang, this guy works really hard, and then in the morning they'd be like, wow, this guy's working really hard. Right. So then I became friends with some of them. And then eventually I think they, there were also a whole bunch of Stanford students that I think they like put bunks in one of the, it was just like, started getting out of control. So I think they started cracking down. Then one morning at like 4 a.m, guard came in and threw me out. And I'm from Chicago. I don't know anyone at that point. I'm like, I know no one in the Bay Area. So I went to a Starbucks, which was not open. I slept on the table outside of the thing. and I think I hit up one of the other entrepreneurs that was in the program. I was like, do you have a couch? Like, I think I kind of need it at this point. Yeah, the press got wind of it. It was this like, worldwide story. But I lived on $1 a day. That was the crazy thing. My burn rate was $1 a day at that time. And
what did you use that dollar for?
This is back when McDonald's had the dollar menu. Literally. So I was like, I would, occasionally would go and, get a cheeseburger or whatever. It was, ultimate scrappiness,
Like you're technically homeless, from homeless to one of the fastest growing startups in history. Eric, what a journey. This is such an interesting point in time of your life and of just tech. Like no matter what happens, I'm sure you'll be extremely successful, but it's such an interesting just point in that journey. And I'm thankful that you made time to share it with us.
It's always good to just have the perspective of, you should start companies to keep the mindset that you're doing it to have fun. Right. And so stoked to see where this goes one way or the other. It's going to be interesting.
Eric, final questions. Where can folks find you online if they want to reach out, maybe follow up on some stuff you shared, and how can listeners be useful to you?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so Bolt.news, the website, over on Twitter, I'm Eric Simons 40 on Twitter, and I think our Twitter account is bolt.new, not with a period. It's like BOLTDOTNEW. I'm very curious to hear. I'm curious to hear what folks think. Like, I mean, this is again like we are learning so much from the people that are coming and trying this thing out and giving their feedback, and within the first week of it going online, we were not the experts on how to use the tool anymore. And it's been that way ever since. And so I love hearing from folks on what they want to see, next and how this is helping them and then where they run into problems, like where we need to go and fix things. So my email address is eric@stackblitz.com. That's Eric with a C. So I'd love to hear from anyone, whether it's a DM on Twitter or an email.
Amazing. Eric, thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This is a blast.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving a review, as that really helps other listeners find the podcast. You can find all past episodes or learn more about the show at lennyspodcast.com. See you in the next episode.